So the recon event is tomorrow, and for that war, the Draculina will need a sidearm. Now, to save space in our box, we did not ship up everything that we wanted, so the plan was already in place to do this, but I now have to do it as quickly as possible. So this is the kit that I sent up. It's actually a strong arm box, but that's just what I had. So inside, I'm going to break it down. These are the parts that I use to make Tier 1 STRYFEs right now. So this is an extended battery door here, so this will give us plenty of room for this. This is a 2-cell LiPo. It's a zippy compact 25C 850, and that is a pretty universal battery for these STRYFEs at this point. This is a lever action high amperage switch, which I tied into some wiring here. So this is very clicky, very responsive. You're going to go here to here on the leads. These are some of the new Australian motors that are performing very, very well with LiPo packs. I think they require a 3S, but hopefully they will run just fine on a 2S. I think that they'll work on either. So there's that, and then these are, of course, XT60 connectors. The Zippy that I have has already been adapted with an XT60 connector, so all we're going to need is the female lead here so that we can hook this up in and through. It will eventually wind up replacing the battery style port here so that we'll connect and then lock it in with probably some of this foam padding. This is just regular lead-free solder. It's worth paying the extra $2 for lead-free solder, and that's the metal wire here. It's actually what we will use to make our connections solid and stable, electrically sound. And then this is 18 gauge silicon insulated hobby wire. Now you can barely see it, but it is threaded, which is ideal for these purposes. So you want threaded, silicon insulated, and then this is 18 gauge, which means that it's plenty thick enough to handle the amperages that the LiPo is going to be pulsing through it. And I got plenty of black and plenty of red links so that we can do everything by the book. And then since I wasn't sure what Vlad was packing up here, I sent up my soldering gun. This is a very standard Radio Shack model. I think it costs like $20. It's one of the best investments I've ever made because I was using a soldering gun from the 40s before this. So Vlad was kind enough to provide a bone stock STRYFE, and we're going to get to work.
So I really wanted to capture as much of the footage from this mod as I could since I was doing it speedy style. This is just a really basic disassembly of the STRYFE. We're going to disassemble it, butterfly it open, and then gut its parts, put all of those into the box where the eventual new parts will go. So the sanding process for this blaster is being done mostly by hand for lack of a modern Dremel, and I do have to keep alternating back and forth between the sanding sponge and some coarse files to get some of the heavier duty stuff off. I do try Bobo's method really quick here to try and razor blade off some of the words, and I ended up hating it. It seemed unnecessarily dangerous and overall very inefficient. No offense to Bobo, just do what works for you, but this is not something that I'm comfortable using. So right now I'm using the ink from a Sharpie and the plastic slip that covers the voltmeter to get an absolutely perfect impression so that we can make a almost seamless window for the voltmeter to come out the back of the stock attachment point. I want it to look absolutely like it was supposed to be there all along.
The voltmeter is a labor of love. So with a series of microfiles, and I mean, thank goodness for a jewelry background, I've gotten this so that that's at about the halfway point and just about flush and just about perfect. I'm actually very happy that we're doing this at this point, but now I have to do it again.
And back to the grind. Literally just slowly grinding away with this triangular file, and then a couple of flat files trying to get this to be the perfect mirror of the perfect window.
So one of the greatest things about vinyl dye is that it's going to work and dry fast, which means that this is going to get to keep progressing, and then more importantly than that, it's going to dry even in this cold. So I'm not so sure about my enamel and how it's going to handle the cold. We might have to put it into an oven of some kind, but the vinyl dye isn't going to care at all. So I'm going to apply probably 2 coats of vinyl dye to this base, and then we're going to get to work taping it off. But I want to show you guys that that was in fact what I'm using for the base coat, and then I figured while I was in here I'd come and grab the little attachment points as well. So I normally do my stripes in a suspension style painting, so I've got the box under them, and I might have jerry-rigged this system, but hopefully it works. Haha, so remember when I thought this was going to be fast? It isn't. So this is the STRYFE with all of its metallic enamel on it, and that has more or less fully cured. I'm pretty happy with it. I think that it's time to start wiring it up. I started that process by installing the Australian motors into the motor cage and then giving them various leads. I did have to twist them because mine were mislabeled, but it is what it is, and that's not the end of the world. So I've already tested that for polarity with a LiPo pack, which was difficult without any quick clamps, so that was tough. But we're going to go ahead and get into this, start kind of getting our wiring set up where we need it to be, and I think that we'll be functional very, very soon. But I also want to install the voltmeter, and that's something that I haven't done personally before, so that's going to be an exciting thing. I'm pretty sure that like I understand the engineering behind it, but I still want to do it right. Slowly but surely getting there. I've gone ahead and put in some of these things. There's a little splice here so that I can run the voltmeter's wire into this to save some space in operation. The voltmeter itself has been completely epoxied into its place, only attached on one end because even though it's more fragile, it means that the blaster will still clamshell perfectly. This is up, not installed, because these wires need to go underneath, and then this of course needs to cover them as they go through, especially since the jam door now serves a function. I want that. I like to put this piece back for no reason whatsoever. It's a great way to store 2 extra spare screws. It keeps this closed, and I like that. Okay, so this is the finished build for the Draculina Speed STRYFE, and it did not wind up being speedy at all. It ended up taking probably around 13 hours, split over 2 days, but only if we count the midnight wraparound. I think that we're still in the 24-hour sector, but I wanted to walk you through the loom real quick. So everything has been redone with 18-gauge wire. We come through here. These have been wired up to the Australian motors, and then through here we use the always-on switch from the original stock loom, and we wired the top and middle switches so that this is in fact always open until it is closed. So that'll be powering this voltmeter. Now the voltmeter's anion is connected to the main anion for the battery pack itself, and then the cation is actually connected to the hot lead from this switch so that it can be open at any time whether the blaster is being revved or not. That's important. Then of course we have a high amperage switch down here, wiring here and here through the cation to the motors from the LiPo, and then since there was a little bit of a too much lip here so that it's very, very snappy, I ended up having to grind a significant portion of this trigger away so that we get full travel out of our STRYFE trigger and we're not impacting that switch. I left just enough of a lip that this will still be a very steady trigger pull, and then over here we have the voltmeter, which I can take the protective cover off of very soon, but that, as you can see, has been 2-part epoxied into place, and it's actually looking really, really smooth how it's tucked in there. So this is going to be a very sneaky STRYFE, but I'll also give you one last look at the paint job before I sync it together and do a final firing demo. Alright, so this is the Draculina, who we of course designed this one-day STRYFE for, and it's turned out really, really nice. I'm very happy with not only the paint job in and of itself, having the red metallic on the flat black, but I also really like this integration of the voltmeter here. So if you want to go ahead and open up that jam door, we can see that the LiPo inside is kicking it, and I think that that's super duper great that it's just working well, and it still has plenty of room for a stock should she choose to attach one. That said, the containment crew door here has the super sweet Drac logo, which is hard to see the way that it's recessed, but I like that it's subtle, and it's currently housing, as you could tell from this, a 2S LiPo. So I think that that's pretty strong. We're getting full travel out of the trigger here, and it's very clicky, but it doesn't matter what I think of the blaster since the blaster isn't actually for me. So why don't you fire it a few times and tell me what you think? Did you shoot somebody?
I may have.
Oh my gosh. Such a terrible sport, shooting before it begins. But that is this blaster. It's going to need some kind of name, and we'll figure one out for it. I don't want to call it Speedy, because that's too easy. But I hope you guys enjoyed watching this very quick build. I hope that you enjoy your STRYFE for many years to come, because this one is rock solid, like the bad guys from Ninja Turtles.